Yeah, when you get into leadership roles, I think leadership is more about who you are than what you do. And that stems from leadership is contagious. And so if you have a leader that is very confident, that is contagious to the rest of the team. If you have a leader that is very insecure, that is contagious to the rest of the team. Right? Leader that's high energy, that's super contagious. A leader that is depressed, that's contagious, right? So who you are, you're kind of looking like, who is the person that I'm hiring? Who are they as a person when you're trying to build like an executive team of leaders?
Welcome to the Painter Growth Podcast, where we help you scale your painting company in record time. Join us as we explore sales, marketing, hiring, finances, leadership, and more, everything that you need to know to scale and grow your painting business. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Painter Growth Podcast. I am here with you today with Mr. Jason Paris, founder and, as Nick Slavik would say, proprietor of...
So stupid.
No, you're not the proprietor.
That word is so stupid.
The Paris Painting. But the cool thing about what you're doing right now is that you're not doing really anything with the painting company. It is running without you.
Very cool.
Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. And that's
I would say I'm operate at the board level.
So, board level.
Yeah.
So in the new age internet speak of how you operate your painting company, it's passive income.
Yes. Yep. That would be, it's not through, we call it the bourgeoisie life, not the proletariat life.
Not the what life?
The proletariat life.
Okay.
Proletariats derive income from energy and effort. Bourgeoisies derive their income from the ownership of the means of production.
Perfect. So that is a wonderful definition. It's not bourgeoisie painting, people have a hard time Googling that.
That would be a funny name.
Paris painting a little bit
Proletariat
better.
Painting would have more of an alliteration to it.
Also difficult to spell. Get that URL wrong 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
So, let's just start from the beginning. How did you, so we both have a similar shared background in painting, getting through some student painting organizations, but like how did you spin off and start Paris Painting?
Right. So similar, so we're both individuals that typically would not enter into the trades without that student painting program that was alive and kind of peaked in the early 2000s and then sunset, some 20 years later. So got the introduction through College Pro Painters, phenomenal world-class training organization there. Injected a lot of talent, whether it's painting companies or coaching companies or consulting service companies into this industry.
BTA is an
that
example.
Typically would not be here, right?
Yeah.
The web is very intricate, right? The tree is very wide. The branches sprawl out pretty far from that organization. So did that in college, graduated college, said, thanks goodness. Now I never have to paint again, never have to be involved in painting again, never get paint on my clothes. Went to Fortune 500 land for about 13 months and had a great time. They treated me well. I treated them well. But as you know, you kind of got that entrepreneurial itch scratched a little bit in college, and that's hard to turn away from. And so a variety of reasons, you kind of have the classic conversation with your spouse and say, what do you think? Should I, crush my soul in a 9 to 5 and just slog it out for 4 years, or go follow my dream? And that's a pretty easy conversation when you're in your early 20s. So that's how Paris Services started just a paintbrush and a dream. And now here we are.
It's funny, the student painting thing, I wouldn't say it scratched the itch. I would say it created the itch.
Yeah, it's hard to say. So
it's like the STD of
you've probably noticed with your cohort. But there's a lot of people that I did that program with, and they all happen to be doing just amazing things in life now.
100%.
And it's kind of like, did it attract individuals that were willing to go out on the limb and survive for a year? Not everybody survives. But did it attract unique people and it was a natural filter, or did it form them? Right. And we'll never know the answer. It's probably a little bit of both. Whether it created that entrepreneurism or it sought it out. I don't know. A lot of people would not
the tools that they needed early on to be successful. Like I learned a lot in my college painting days that I learned more there than I did in actual college.
For sure. Oh yeah. College was, in case I have to get a corporate job, prove to someone that I can show up on time and attend classes and have like normal human functioning for a number of years. Right.
So what was the first several years like in terms of your responsibilities, the business, and I guess the revenue growth that coincided with that?
Yeah. So early days, it was just, like I said, a paintbrush and a dream. So door knocking, like we all grew up in College Pro. That's what we were all taught and basically what I knew. So I was doing everything like your classic, sole proprietor, as Nick puts it. So martyrdom, burnout, 16-hour days, wear all the different hats. I think first year, I did it part-time the first 2 years. So it was like 40 grand in revenue the first summer. So a bunch of decks, and then did 180 the second year, and then went full-time in 2014 to 560. And then the growth there was kind of like 560 to 980 to 1.2. Then it was 2, 3, 4, 5, jump to 8, jump to 9, jump to 10. So that's kind of like the full progression of history.
So
of
basically
the growth.
to 10 million a year in 10 years.
Yep. And most of that growth coming in the last like 4 years, three years.
That's incredible. So that, I mean, from the skills that you learned in College Pro to running a $10 million per year painting organization, there's a gap there, right?
Right.
So
very different. So College Pro franchise, if you do $150,000 of revenue, you're a high performer. Get up on the stage and get a plaque.
Or 5 plaques.
Right.
Yeah. So what kind of changes did you have to make to, internally to yourself and to your behaviors and your actions to go from owner operator to CEO?
Sure. They're very different. I mean, those are just completely different businesses and completely different people.
But you did it,
Yeah.
you did it in a staged approach from basically where many painters are right now, that's 0 to 1 million,
Yeah.
and you got to 10 million. So
Right.
it's not like you stepped in as this like high level CEO executive.
No.
You develop yourself and you became the person that you needed to be.
Yeah. That's actually a great question that I don't think I've been asked very frequently. So top podcast, paintergrowth.com.
Yes.
A lot of the things that make you good at getting into the industry are not what are going to have you be successful later in life. And a lot of it comes down to your character. So who you are is different than what you can do. So when you're at a low level stage, you're really amplified by what your abilities are. And that's really, really important. I would just say as you grow, who you are becomes more and more important, because now you're becoming a leader. You're not, the results are not magnified by your own ability to either be high skill or high bandwidth. It's now how well can you affect the performance and the outcome of the team around you. And that starts to come to, how intelligently can you architect a team and a system that team can operate and run through. And then it's a combination of those both, right? How well are you motivating and empowering people? How well can you play nice with others and bring top talent in to an organization that is still a humble bumble, can't fully afford those roles, but has the potential to be harvested through growth. And so I think a lot of it comes down to your character gets forged, and you kind of grow into the positions as the company grows.
Sure. I love that. And it's very interesting to me that the first thing that you attribute that growth to isn't about getting more leads, right? Like most people say, it's
Right.
like, oh, I need more leads, and then I'll grow. I need to close more sales. But it's about creating that team and delegating and basically developing other people to accomplish certain goals. It's not about outworking everybody. It's about out hiring everybody, you could say.
Yeah, out architecting a team. How do you build a collection of people that are high performing? That is like so for the last 10 years, there's been a rally cry of complaints so painting contractors are the worst. They're big complainers, and a big reason is you have a bunch of people running a business that have no business running a business, right? Low barrier to entry, a lot of talented people that should be mid-level managers at a painting company, but there's no large painting companies for them to go work for. So they're almost forced to start their own company to realize the potential of their mid-level management expertise. And so they're not true entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs solve problems. So you get a lot of complaints of there's no painters, there's no labor, right? And that was a rally cry for the last 10 years. But that wasn't the real issue. The real issue was your ability to solve problems, right? Because then the second you start to get labor in the door, now there's not any leads out there. And again, that's not an issue. That's not a real issue. If you look at the paint store and how many gallons are being sold and how many of those gallons are you buying, right? And then what territory you're willing to drive through. The real issue is what is your business model and how well can you execute it? And most painting companies just don't do that very well. Right? They're not true entrepreneurs. They have no business running a business. That's the state of the industry today, but it won't be that way forever. Most trades have professionalized and gone through that path, but we're in like this really painful stage right now.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. I haven't heard of it like that. Heard it articulated that way before. That the painting business, the painting industry isn't full of entrepreneurs. It's full of painters who decided to start their business because they can make a little bit more money running
Or
their
were
own
forced
crew.
to. I think there's a strong element of they were forced to because they have mid-level management talents. They have the ability to run a team of people, maybe manage multiple job sites, maybe lead a team of salespeople. But if you are someone that has technical expertise in the painting trade plus some management ability, where can you go to realize that potential? I mean, how many painting companies are in each state that have the infrastructure to afford those roles? There aren't many. So I think people are really forced to start their own painting companies because there's no high infrastructure painting companies to go work for. I think there's a little bit of a cyclical issue there. It's a hypothesis.
That's a hypothesis for sure. There's merit to it. And there's like franchises are very popular right now. And that may be where the people who are painters who become franchisees are drawn to, because it's someone who will then nurture that, management ability and the people who have that entrepreneurial drive. But it's definitely not for everybody.
And it's kind of this, is there anything beyond the owner operator? Right. And typically I think most entrepreneurs, they want to build businesses but people get stuck in this mindset of I'm an owner operator and I'm going to be running my business in a role, wearing most, if not all the hats ad infinitum. It's almost a burnout, but it is a burnout position. If you look at the stats of it, and it's a challenge for the industry, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. In my business right now, I'm, in the similar kind of scaling stage where I don't do everything anymore. I have a team in place. I'm empowering others to execute things for me. Do people make mistakes? Yes, sometimes, but it's okay as long as you learn from those mistakes. I think a lot of contractors, a lot of business owners in general are scared of allowing their team to make mistakes. And by not giving them the long enough leash to actually make their own mistakes, they'll never develop and they'll never fully take those responsibilities off of the owner's plate.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like if you, well, it depends what you want too, right? There are some people that want to build a painting company that is only the finest finishes and only level 5 craftsman painters. And that may only scale to yourself. There actually may not be anybody that's as good as that owner operator at delivering the finest details and the finest quality. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to hire more painters, you might have to evaluate the model, right? Like I said, your only limitation, your only competition is how well can you execute your business model. That comes down to your execution ability, but also comes down to the business model that you've architected. And if you have a business model that doesn't allow any mistakes, whether you're a paintergrowth.com company or a house painting company, or you're worried about somebody, writing a bid wrong or giving the wrong impression, or who knows what it could be, that model is just very difficult to execute. So you're going to be limited. That is ultimately your competition, the model that you've architected.
For sure. And people might push back and say, "Oh, it's not my fault. It's the market. Right? I can't find painters who want to work for me, or I can't find enough jobs to keep my painters busy." Mm-hmm. What would you say to those types of objections?
I would say there are companies that do not have that problem because they solve problems. Right? And I think the biggest hurdle that people bump up to when I can't find labor is, I can no longer get the low-hanging fruit, which is my friends and family and the network, and just throwing stuff out there and hoping stuff is received back. Once you get past the low-hanging fruit, it takes effort to climb up the tree. And climbing up that tree is where you start to now become a true business and you're solving problems. And the same thing with your leads, right? You're networking, you've got a good brand, people know you, you're referred around quite a bit. The tactics that you're using are, you're hitting all the ones that the message is perfect for. At some point, you've grabbed all the low-hanging fruit, and now you have to start ascending up the tree. You got to set up a ladder, you got to jump a little higher, right? That takes energy, effort, problem solving. And that's in every domain of your business. And,
Mhm.
and the problems are real, but the problem solving is also real.
I like that description. Most business owners are not in the business of solving problems, and if you reframe your mind to look at every challenge as a problem that can and should be solved, then you tackle, put everything in it that you can to solve that problem. Then all of a sudden that it does become easier to solve that problem.
Yeah, there's growth mindset and there's fixed mindsets, and it's not to poo-poo that there are not challenges in the world, and you can't just say, "Oh, put on your problem-solving hat and you'll figure it out." Life is hard, business is hard, business is war, right?
It
As the
is.
kids say.
It is not easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it.
Right. If it was easy, everyone would do it. But at the end of the day, it's just simply not true that there are no workers out there.
Yeah.
Right. There are a lot of people applying paint every day, and I would hope that people are listening to your podcast. They would likely be better suited if they worked for your company than the average truck in a truck.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And same thing with the clients out there. There's a lot of paint being sold every single day through all the major paint manufacturers. You can just get like broad-based numbers from each paint store. How much of it are you applying? And would those clients be better served if your company was applying that paint? Maybe not 100% of the time, maybe not even 50% of the time, but you only need 2% market share to 10x your business that you're running right now.
100%.
Right? So that's kind of gives some perspective to what you're really competing against. It's truly how well can you execute your business model? What is your execution ability? And what is the model that you're trying to execute?
You're a perfect example of that, because you're in Minnesota.
Right.
And you have 80 painters?
We have a lot. I have no idea. Most of them are, I'd say most of them are subcontractors.
Sure.
So we have a nice little in-house team. It's like a little Slavic sized company division that we have in-house here.
And then subs.
Yep. And then subs. And that's a joke. Nick and I are good friends. I like throw little jabs at him.
Nick size division. Yeah.
Yep, a little Slavic sized company,
Yeah.
a little in-house team. But it's, super majority of it is subcontractors.
The point that I'm
there's
making,
over
though, is like
100
you're in a small market in comparison to many markets in the country.
Yeah, we're we're a flyover state. It's still nothing to poo-poo at. So it's still, we like to, hey, we're the Twin Cities. We've got the Target Center.
Sure.
But yeah, it's nothing too crazy. We're not the East Coast.
Yeah.
Right? We're definitely not the East Coast, and we're nowhere near tapping, the top of the market. It's just how well can we execute.
Exactly. So what I want to focus in on here is the point of this podcast is to give actionable tips and insights to the painting contractor looking to grow their business. Okay. So the number one skill is architecting a team of high performers to take on the roles that you need to do to execute and grow a team, grow a company. So let's rewind the clock, 8-9 years, you're doing, what do you say, 350 your second year, 600 your third year, something like that.
Yep.
Or 850, whatever it was. So going from that level to like the 1.5 million, that is quite a big jump that most guys and girls struggle with. Yeah. So what would you say are the important steps that someone needs to take to make that leap from $500,000 to $1.5 million?
It's called that the valley of death, right? You've maximized the output of your personal productivity, and now you need to begin to invest in a team, but that requires a lot more complexity of your systems, because you're no longer just communicating to yourself, but you have different components of the team communicating with different components of the team as the job runs through its cycle. And you may not realize the full capacity of that overhead you just incurred. So you could make less money, right? Now, fortunately, I got to do this in the late 2010s, right? So it was boom economy, all the way up. So you could grow through that pain, but first things first, establishing a core compass, you need to know your numbers, right? You can't make decisions without KPIs. You can't hire people without a clear vision of the numbers, because how are you going to guide their performance or base their compensation or really anything in the business?
What are the numbers that are important at this stage?
I would like to know the revenue. You're probably not surprised, but I've talked to enough people. It's what revenue do you have booked? What revenue have you produced this year? You've got your COGS, your cost of goods sold, giving you your gross margin. And then it'd be nice to have some categories of overhead, but I'm not even like super sold on needing to know that in real time at this point, at that stage. It's really probably the fundamentals are job costing at that stage, right? It'd be nice if there was a business plan, right? You said, here's the revenue numbers we need to hit each month, each quarter, and the actions that need to happen to know if we're on track or off track to guide decision making. But if you're talking about just getting to 1.5, you're kind of starting to build out that core team, which is you've got, high level, you've got your production team, you've got your sales team, you've got your office staff. And as the owner, you're probably wearing at least one of those hats, if not two. And so you're making those initial like key hires, which could be like, hey, I'm hiring my first sales guy, or I'm hiring my first production manager.
Yeah.
Or I'm hiring my first admin staff.
It's a big decision. If you have a company and you're doing okay and you're doing 50,000 a month and you're taking home 15, 20,000, it's hard to dedicate, a third or half of that to a new fixed cost.
Right.
It's a hard decision.
It's a hard decision, and it's hard, especially hard if you're flying by the seat of your pants. You don't know if it's a good decision. Mm-hmm. You don't know if they're performing well, right? Because now it starts to expose all the flaws and the foundation if it's not solid. Right? Which is why you need to start with knowing your numbers.
Yeah.
You can just grow something that's unhealthy. Now, as you start to add staff, and that becomes pretty painful pretty quick.
So knowing your numbers, obviously super important. If you don't know what challenge you're tackling, it's hard to know what to do, right? Like, if you're not profitable, why aren't you profitable, right? Is it a paint thing? Is it a labor thing? Is it a job management? Is it a estimating thing? Right. So knowing your numbers, super important. And then building out your team. So your production team, your sales team, your office staff. So for the guy or girl who has, 3 crews, they're running 1,000,000 miles an hour, they're doing sales, they're doing, production management, they're moving paint, they're talking to customers. How do you get out of that? How do you get out of that grind?
Great question.
You got no time to do anything.
No time to do anything. I mean, you ultimately have to set priorities. So you're either going to say no to some things that you're doing right now that are not high impact, or you're going to add capacity. And you're working 60 hours a week right now. And it's like, well, I'm going to work 70 hours a week, but those 10 extra hours are not going to on hamster wheel time. It's time to get off the hamster wheel, right? It could be that, but it's hard because I would not advise growing and hiring and adding staff if there's not a foundation that's set, because you're just going to add more chaos to your world, in my opinion. So you want to set that foundation first. And if you're just flying by the seat of your pants, there's a likely you have to go through the priority management exercise. What activities in your world will give you the highest impact to the goal that you're looking to achieve? So get clear on the goal you're looking to achieve, whether that's financial, structural, philosophical in your business. And there are activities that have higher impacts and lower impacts to achieving those objectives. And the whole point of prioritizing is to do the activities that have the highest impact. It's kind of like you can't handle everything that's thrown at you, right? Our minds know this very well, right? We only absorb like a single digit percentage points of all the information that's thrown at us. Our minds are mostly more filters than perceivers of the world. Most of the inputs that's given to us at any single time is filtered out by our brain. And it's just going to prioritize on what's the most important to keeping you alive, making sure you don't walk into a tree, right? Whatever it is. And just doing that in your life too, just trying to say, what are the top priorities? What have the highest impact? Letting other things go. That's
awesome. I do need to take a minute and just shout out my program. You didn't know this, but literally step 1 in my training program is priority management.
I like that.
Yeah, it's huge. It's one of the biggest skill gaps that
there are a lot of people that do not have that skill that are even like somewhat high performers. And it is just so stressful when you talk to them. It's like, the first step I'm sure you have people do is do a brain dump. Just start with that. Otherwise, you're carrying that in your head every single night. It's like, no wonder you can't sleep.
Yeah, basically it's like, what are you doing in a day? What are all the things that take up even 15 minutes of your time? Literally write it out throughout the day as you're going through your day. And then at the end of your week, look back on it and rate them. Was this a good use of time? Was it a bad use of time? Was it valuable? Should I do it? And then should I do it, delegate it, or dump it?
Yeah.
I mean, people can get 20 hours of time back pretty quickly just by doing that kind of simple exercise.
Well, TFC comp model there.
Let's look at bringing on high performers, because this
Yeah.
is kind of the most important part. Uh,
Hmm.
the most important part of this. If you can't bring on high performers, then you can't really grow a company, because you can't rely on people. You can't, delegate something successfadly. What do you look for when you bring on one of these key executive? I wouldn't say executive, but production, sales,
Right.
admin. What types of characteristics do you look for? Is it a technical skill, or do you look for character?
Well, I mean, the easy answer is character first, right? You're kind of looking, I mean, a lot of these companies are probably looking at co-builders to do this with them, because they don't have the capacity or maybe the know-how to build every function of their company. So they're really not ready to hire an employee. They like kind of want to hire a manager, but really what they need to hire is a co-builder.
Hmm.
And the builder profile is a lot different than a manager profile, right? So you kind of need someone that's a little bit more entrepreneurial, a little more willing to deal with the chaos and handle the chaos. Um, culture fit is going to be number one. Competencies can be learned, because there's not that much competency required in
Yeah.
this industry. Right? It's not like this is biomechanical engineering. It's like a very, very low threshold of technical knowledge is required to do this world well.
Basically, like, do you make me feel good, and can I trust you that you're going to follow up on your task and do what you say you're going to do?
Yeah, when you get into leadership roles, I think leadership is more about who you are than what you do, and that stems from leadership is contagious. And so if you have a leader that is very confident, that is contagious to the rest of the team. If you have a leader that is very insecure, that is contagious to the rest of the team. Right? Leader that's high energy, that's super contagious. A leader that is depressed, that's contagious, right? So who you are, you're kind of looking like, who is the person that I'm hiring? Who are they as a person when you're trying to build like an executive team of leaders? And you made up a good point. You brought up a good point before about letting people make mistakes. As you start to hire out an executive team and a management team, you ultimately have the trump card as the founder, as the owner, but that's not a card that you like to play willy-nilly, because it's very hard to retain top level talent if they do not feel empowered to craft the outcome of their role. So if you're going to hire top level talent, they want to feel empowered to achieve certain results. And if you're coming in as the owner and saying, I like your plan, but as the owner, I got to tell you, I want us to do it this way. Right now, you just chopped off their legs. Now they don't feel in control. They better hit their comp plan, because if they don't, who are they going to point to? And you're not going to retain them for very long. So I'm going on a little bit of a rant here, but you just brought up such a good point before that's tying together to this, where there have been decisions that my executive team has made where I'm like, gosh, guys, I don't know about that, but I let them roll.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say 8 times out of 10, they're right. And 2 times out of 10, they're wrong. And it kind of bugs me. The only time I've ever stepped in as an owner is when there's a values conflict. Right? If we're going to do something as an executive team that's going to conflict with the values of this company or tarnish the long-term equity of the brand, now you got the ownership hat stepping in, right? And now it's not fun for anybody anymore. But in general, you got to empower people. Otherwise, they're not going to be retained, especially if they're top level talent.
I know I've said this several times already today, but I really like that.
Yeah.
And I really like that because empowering somebody else to do what has historically been your job is hard to do. It's a hard thing to relinquish that type of control.
Well, it's better when you're not very good at anything. It's easier for me.
Yeah. As someone who was not a painter going into starting your painting business, you didn't have a choice to pick up the brush.
Right. Not very good at sales because I'm awkward. I don't like having conflicts, so I'm not good at production. I don't like to focus, so I'm not good at the financials.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking with all those things, but there is a truth to, even if you can do everything well, you don't have the bandwidth to. And the flip side of that is, even if you want to work 20 hours a day and do everything, you're not going to be the best at everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of had the best of both worlds, in that I didn't want to work very hard. It was easy to find people that were better than me because I wasn't very good. And so building out the team was, a pretty easy on-ramp to the ego death that comes with that.
It's a good way to look at it. When you're as the business grows, you start by doing everything, and then the various departments in which you are executing on. You're executing on production, sales, marketing, and your admin in your specific business, whichever aspect of your business balloons first, like becomes the largest part of your day. Like, would you say that's what you should tackle first in terms of finding someone to take over that role?
It's a great question. For me, the calculus is more driven around what gives you energy in life. There's an element of what is the highest need in the business, as well as what are you personally best at. But it's a personal journey for every single founder. I like the template of what do you not want to do, right? You may not have a huge sales demand in your company, but you might hate doing it. And it's okay to hire a salesperson. The path that I took is probably counterculture to most founders, and that production was one of the first things I got rid of. So maybe that's not too uncommon. Sales was the second thing I got rid of, which is the last thing people usually give up. My favorite thing to do is just be in the office and on computers, right? And that's usually the first thing that a founder wants to get rid of that's in this technical workspace. Or it was like a technician in painting they want to get rid of. So I think it's a personal journey for every business founder, whether it's a capacity issue, as you pointed out, of you physically can't get to all the estimates, you physically can't do all the production management, or it's driven by what gives you energy and what gives you life. I think there's different calculus for each individual there.
Yeah. I mean, the first step is like you said, what do you like doing and what do you not like doing? If you're really good at sales, but you hate doing it, now you're in a little conflict. You got to decide if there's someone who can do it almost as good as you.
Right. And most people, their dream is to do sales and high level management of their business. And, other people, they want to be the president of their company. And those are all amazing paths, right? And some people don't want to do anything. They want to be be a board member of their business and be like a stockholder or a shareholder. And that's
something that you didn't bring up, but I think is kind of like relevant and lurking in the shadows here, is starting with the goal. Yeah. Starting with what you want your dream position to look like, what you want your dream company to look like, and then reverse engineering it.
Yeah. Yeah. And just there's a difference between objectives and goals. And I don't always use the words correctly, but I kind of craft my own meanings for those. Having a very clear objective of what it looks like is like the description. It's not smart. SMART, right? It's not specific. It's not measurable. It's not actionable. It's not realistic. It's not time-based. This is what I want the company to be in the future. And then here's the goals or the milestones that get me there. And something I'm thinking about that is when I was first doing my initial business planning in Paris painting, I was like, well, and this is coming from the franchisee world of college pro painters. I was like, if I could get to like a $2 million company, I probably would be completely passive, right? So the objective was to be a shareholder and be passive in the business. The goal has changed a lot, right? It was not $2 million top line. That, the kind of the golden goose is stable and passive. You can kind of get one or the other, but to get both requires quite a bit of scale, right? So $2 million, maybe you can get passive, but it's not going to be very stable, right? But I just didn't know that. So I'd set goals.
As you get to the new revenue levels, just to clarify, as you get to those various revenue thresholds, you can now afford different mid-tier managers that you need to create that stability.
You begin to add the redundant infrastructure that creates inherent stability. So at a single digit or low digit million revenue size, if you lose one or two sales reps, that is a catastrophic challenge that will pull ownership back into the day-to-day operations. When you're an 8-figure business, you can lose a couple of sales reps and it's like, ooh, a little blip, and then you just keep rolling, right? Yeah. It's a lot more just stable.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say the objective is there and the goals just move you in that direction. And the goals typically change as you gain more context, as is the normal thing in life. Context changed, your self-awareness changes, the environment changes. So the goals are always shifting, but those goals should always be heading in the same directive.
So same direction. Are you saying objective is a non-financial goal?
Or can an objective it could be a financial goal, but the financial goal would be, so like here's an objective statement. You could say for financials specifically in like a person, right? A person might have an objective saying, I want to have passive assets that outweigh my lifestyle expenses. And then you'd set goals towards that. And the goals you set in your early 20s might change by the time you get to your late 30s, right? You may have a lifestyle creep that you never imagined, but you're always heading in that direction of that future path of that objective, right? The objective is it's a lot more fluffy. It's a lot more descriptive. Think of it as like the things you would write on your tombstone personally.
Okay.
And then you set these physical objectives. I'll give you one more story if you want it, which is
Do it.
you might have an objective saying you want to be physically well, able to do whatever you want to do, right? Travel, play with your kids. And so you set goals around that. And let's say right now I like to trail run. And so a lot of my goals are around trail running, but there could be a scenario where both my legs get blown up or chopped off, or I break a femur and I get gangrene. And suddenly all the goals I have of trail running, even though we've got great technology and I could probably run again, I'm probably not doing ultra marathon trail running. All my goals just got wiped out, but the objective has not changed. Right? So now you can craft new goals of saying, how do I be capable of doing whatever I want to do, even though I'm not doing trail running? Maybe you get into swimming or triathlons or marathon running or something like that.
Gotcha. And then, so if that was your objective, the one that you said earlier, like passive assets that outweigh my lifestyle expense, how would you create a goal statement for your business around that?
So you set like a long-term, short-term, medium-term goals. So like a long-term goal might be, a certain amount of real estate portfolio level, and then, cash flowing business level, right? And a short-term goal might be, I need to hire a production manager. That's like this quarter. If I hire a production manager, I'm moving in that direction, right?
Yeah.
And so that you kind of like, whatever your passive assets want to be, maybe it's not your painting company. This is another path that's very viable for most people. You do what I call as the dentist model, right? Dentists don't work very hard. They make a lot of money. This not, excuse me to the dentist if this is offensive, right? But in my view of a dentist, you kind of walk into the office, Johnny's doing the appointments, Susie's doing the pre-clean check. And you walk, you say, hey, Johnny, how's the appointments looking? All right, great. And walk over. Hey, Susie, how's the mouth looking over there? Oh, yeah, let me do a double check. You missed D5 over there. Okay. And then you're just making hundreds of thousands of dollars and you're investing in commercial real estate. That's like the dentist lifestyle.
I love it. My dentist is very similar.
Right. But you have a great lifestyle business that's never going to become, and dentists are different. The dentist practices are much more stable than painting companies. But if you put that metaphor over to a painting company, your painting company is not going to be a stable asset in your life. Right. The minute that you stop putting active energy and effort into it, it may no longer produce a profit for you. Your equity may no longer produce a profit. But during your lifestyle time of operating that, you're investing in other assets that are still getting you towards that objective. So it's not saying that your business has to be the core part of that specific financial objective.
Gotcha. It can be one of the vehicles which helps support your full objective.
Yeah. And I would say, it's been very, very rare in house painting for sure, for people being able to harvest the equity in their business. That's like pretty unheard of. But I don't think it's going to be forever. That was also very unheard of in farming. That was also very unheard of in breweries. HVAC plumbing 30 years ago was in the same place. And there are fundamental differences between those professionalized trades and painting, but painting as a whole should be professionalizing, and you can build businesses that have harvestable equity outside of your energy and effort.
The only way to accomplish that is going full circle to the very first thing that you said, and that's putting together a rock star team. That's what everything comes down to.
Yeah.
Because you need someone to be that production manager that you're being right now. You need someone to be the sales rep. You need someone to be able to talk to the customers the way that you do and handle the problems. And
you need operators.
Yeah.
Right. And this is where the paradigm of an operating partner oftentimes comes into play. You have your equity partners and you have the operating partners. And at the end of the day, whether it's Coca-Cola, whether it's Sherwin-Williams, right, whether it's Johnny's Painting, someone has to operate that business. And if it's not the founder who owns the equity, who is operating that company?
Mm-hmm. And that can also come like having the right person, but also structuring the right compensation plans to compensate for the behaviors that you want.
right? Aligning the comp plans to the objectives or the goals of the
How have
business.
you utilized comp plans to help be kind of like the North Star for the great people that you hire?
Yeah. So there's three things that almost everybody in the organization has comp aligned to: gross margin, NPS. What is the third one, Mike? I'm blanking. Let's say that there's two things they're aligned to: gross margin, NPS. There is a third one. And I'm blanking on it.
Profitability and quality are two pretty important
Quality.
things.
No, that's NPS.
NPS is quality.
Yeah. Maybe it's just those two.
Profitability, quality, efficiency.
No.
I mean, if you just slayed those two, you'd be running.
Let's just play those two for now.
Yeah, sure.
Let's say those two. Those are like the core. This is not live, right?
Not live. No, we'll probably won't edit it out because it's
kidding.
pretty funny. But
it's going to be. So it's like those are the North Star. Basically, is the company making money, and is the brand equity going to be stable? Is it
the customer's happy, right? That's it. NPS. That's for people who don't know. Net Promoter Score, rate you out of 10, right. 10, 9 and 10 or plus, 7, 8 or media or like neutral, 6 and below are detractors. So you want as many 9s and 10s as possible.
Yep. Yeah. What's your brand equity? How's that being maintained? Essentially.
Yeah. So for a production manager, for example, what would be a sample compensation plan
right.
that someone would bring on a production manager for? Like, let's give us some actionable nuggets here.
Right. So you give them a base comp, and then you give them incentives or bonus structures around the gross margin that they are bringing into the business, and then a kicker on their NPS score. We do it by quarter because if you have a bad month or a bad week, it doesn't tank it, but it's also a short enough cycle that they get real-time feedback. And then what is that number should ultimately be governed by a little something we call a business model. And the business model will give you, general percentages. Like, hey, whoever is managing these projects, that should be costing us around, say, 5% of the revenue. And if your margin is, say, 40%, it's about 1/8 of the margin they bring in. And that's ultimately what you tie their comp into, is to say you are going to be, what is that, 16%? You're going to be XY% of the margin that you bring in. And we can get that high on base, but you're going to have a low leash and low upside. We're going to give you a low base, but then you have a lot of flexibility, and we're willing to share that risk with you and provide more upside. This is how we craft the comp plans specifically of our sales reps, because they're all pretty entrepreneurial driven people. It's never a conversation of how much money am I willing to pay you. It's how much money do you want to make? And then what are you committing to do that? Oh, you want to make $200,000 selling paint jobs? Great. How do you plan on making that? You know the business model, right? We'll share it with you. Here's the business plan. Here's what all works together. You may get creative. Oh, you're going to bring in leads so we don't have to buy marketing services to get those. I don't care if I pay Angie's List or you. It's irrelevant to the company. So if you're going to bring leads in that we're not, so you get creative with them. Open book management. What's the business model? The compensation is ultimately governed by the percentages in the plan. It's never a question of what can I get paid because I've been here for a long time and I've earned my dues. It's, well, you tell me how your comp plan is going to shake out this quarter or this year.
This is hopefully not lost on everyone listening, but the most profound thing that I think you've said all day. How much do you want to make, and what are you going to do to get that? Right? Yeah. Like, you can have a painter making 100 G's a year. And I was talking to Brad, and he has painters making 100,000 a year. Yeah. Right. But it's like, how much do you want to make, and what are you going to do to get that? And then giving them the tools and the infrastructure to be able to make that much money. For like a painter, paying them piece rate and having them understand how much production they need to make in order to make their earnings goals.
Yep. And I've heard, one of the common discussions with painters are, you don't have to babysit me. You don't have to manage me. And be like, you know what? That's a great point. Here's all the roles and responsibilities of a project manager. If you as a crew lead are willing to take those on, I say 5% of the top line revenue, but really the revenue is irrelevant. It's really about what margin you're bringing in. We'll give you that kicker on the margin if you don't require any coordination, collections, the things that they think they are doing, but they're not doing.
Yeah.
So that's again, the beauty of open book management. Just like same thing with the sales rep, right? Sales rep is like, I want to do more, want to make more. It's like, well, there is this creative way of, we are spending money on leads or to go, basically place appointments in your calendar. If we don't have to do that, the company makes more money. You can make that money. We have a profit target, and I'm fine if it goes to you. The cost goes to you versus somebody else. Yeah.
I'm taking down notes for my business right now.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the stuff like I know and I'm familiar with, but like I
Yeah.
might not be implementing it as well as I could be.
Yeah, we both are cut from the same cloth, and sometimes it's in different stages, getting reminded of things. It's like when you watch a movie over, that you watched in your teens versus your 30s. You get just a different framing of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, open book management, helping people find creative ways to help them reach their income goals. So, during onboarding and even recruiting, asking your recruit how much money they want to make, and then figuring out, not just paying them that much, but figuring out how they can earn that much while the business maintains margins.
Yeah, it kind of sets the culture for your company too. I'd say at Paris Painting, right, our culture, we like to have a lot of SEs on the quadrant, the Stephen Covey's quadrant. A lot of self-employed mindset people. Right? An employee mindset is just different. And the way that I classify an employee mindset is, an employee is not responsible nor empowered to achieve an outcome of their life. It's like, if my boss is mean to me, I'm gonna have a bad day. And it looks like the government's against me and my life sucks. I don't know. That's kind of like an employee mindset. Employee mindset is, I'm out of control. I'm not in control of my outcome, of the quality of my life.
Yeah.
Right? Versus a self-employed mindset may be like, hey, I'm Johnny LLC in my mind, and I have a client called Paris Painting, and I coordinate the revenue. I come to the office each day, and I know that if I coordinate this much revenue and bring this much money in, they're going to make this much money, and I'm going to make this much money. And to the extent that I can do that well is going to determine my well-being financially. To the extent that I can craft my day in a way that maximizes my output and productivity may make me happy or sad. It's kind of like, well, if you guys want to take a 2:00 break, take a 2:00 break. Whatever makes you most efficient. I'm not here to tell you what you have to do. But kind of sets that tone. You're crafting comp plans. You're just trying to empower people to have a self-employed mindset of, you are responsible for the outcome of your role, for the outcome of your, which is pretty countercultural in America. I don't know how it is in Canada. In America, we are more entrepreneurial than Canada for sure, right? Everybody knows that. But there is like this creep that's happening lately of, it's not my fault. I'm not responsible for the output of my life. The well-being of my life is beyond my control. It's the Illuminati, it's the boomers, it's inflation, it's interest rates, who knows what it is, but whatever it is, it's not my fault. And just trying to infuse that spirit of, you have domain over the outcome of your life is a little countercultural right now.
It reminds me of a recent client. So I had 2 clients, similar story that I have to just bring up the example of this entrepreneurial thing. So one client, his car broke down and he was just getting started in his company. His car broke down. So he ended up not going door to door. He was going to go door to door this one night. His car broke down, had to go to the shop. So he ended up not doing it. Car was in the shop for a week, ended up not doing any marketing for a week because he couldn't get about. Client B, same thing happened. He took the bus.
Right.
There's an Are you in control of your output? I love it.
This is like, I don't know, makes me think deeply sometimes about, I've certainly been very, very lucky. And a lot of entrepreneurs end up getting very, very lucky. And there is a lot of luck in life. And there's also times in your life, and there are people that you meet who are just unstoppable. And it's kind of like, it doesn't matter what it takes, they will get something done. And it's probably a little bit of both.
Luck's when preparation meets opportunity.
Right. There's also luck. Like,
there is luck. Like, you'll talk to like Mark Cuban or whatever, and he'll say that, because you talk to him all the time, right? But he'll say like he got super lucky because it was 1999. He invested in whatever, internet. And so he got billions, and there's so many stories like that. But so there's definitely luck to it.
Yeah.
But for the average person, the preparation is probably more important than the luck.
Yeah. And then what is your ability to solve problems? How tenacious are you? How unstoppable are you? Where it's like, there are a lot of people that are very stoppable.
I love that.
That
I think that's the quote of the day that I'm going to pull. That's maybe the title of
that's
your.
cool. There are a lot of people that are very stoppable. Jason
Yeah.
putting everybody down.
Yeah. No, it's not even
Jason
putting
thinks he's
everyone
better than
down.
everybody else.
I think it's less of that, but it's more of forcing people to look inward. Like you're obviously very accomplished. You've done what most business owners never will do. 0.4% of businesses reach 10 million a year, right? Congratulations. But to get there, you have encountered challenges and faced objectives that would have folded other people.
It would have pulverized and crushed.
Right?
Yeah.
Stressful
That's how I like
days,
to think
weeks,
about
months,
it.
years.
I think there's a reality to that. There's also like survivorship bias that I'm somewhat aware of, but I don't know. It's probably easier for somebody else to tell my stories than to come from my mouth, because it sounds like survivorship bias or inhumility when I say it. So if there's somebody else saying it, what they would say is, Jason has overcome things that would have crushed most people.
Mm-hmm.
And I would never say that because I'm too humble.
Sure.
That's what someone else might say.
At the same time, achieving business milestones, I'm not here to pump your ego, but achieving business milestones does warrant a certain level of, not ego, but, because ego is the enemy, like we were talking about earlier, but like a level of confidence.
Yeah.
Like you do get that opportunity, that permission now at some level to be confident.
Yeah. It gives you, it's like a show of competency. It does allow you confidence. This is like another thought that I've been batting around that I try and talk to people about, which is when I go to painting conferences, people like to listen to what I have to say. Right. And, why they listen to what I have to say is more based around, I think, my intelligence in architecting win-win scenarios, my ability to execute, my toughness, then sometimes it is my ideas. And so what I mean by that is when I go to a conference, I'm always interested in listening to people's ideas and trying to silo them off away from the messenger. Because I might meet somebody who, is not running an impressive company, right? And they look like they don't know how to tie their shoes. And they may not know how to tie their shoes. And they have this really novel idea of how to structure the handoff process in a painting job. But no one cares what they say. But their idea is independent of their ability to execute. They're just really poor executors. It doesn't mean they have the bad idea. And so, I don't know, sometimes my ideas get worshipped because I'm a really good executor, really tough. I think I have a good intelligence when it comes to architecting systems and even the person systems in our organization. But there are also people out there that have good ideas that are not good at discipline, and it doesn't make their ideas any less worth observing.
Totally fair point. But the business
they get filtered out either way.
The business acumen creates credibility, and people with that credibility get listened to more.
But it's kind of like, if anyone would have listened to my credit, they should be most interested in my credibility when I talk about my personal discipline, because that's probably what drives success the most when it comes to small businesses.
Do you have a few more minutes here? I know we're at the top of the hour.
But okay, Mike, I do nothing all day. This is like, I have no job.
Awesome.
It's doing this and then like editing like shorts with memes on them and stuff. So
I need to introduce you to my editor because he's wonderful.
Okay. Yeah. I spend, it's a labor of love, but I could use help.
Personal discipline.
Yeah.
Let's roll into that since you have no job, but it took a long time to get here. So describe personal discipline. Like, what is your definition of being disciplined?
So it's aligning your actions to your desires.
Okay.
What if I just say that?
Aligning actions to desires. Totally. I want to be rich, but I'm not willing to put in the work to do the hard thing to become rich.
Yeah. I want to go for a run, but tomorrow I wake up and I don't want to.
Or I want to be considered a runner, but I'm not willing to run every day.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to I want to expand the knowledge of my mind and read, books, but I'm not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. These are all like examples of discipline to achieving an outcome that you've stated that you want.
And do you think that you're really good at that because you're very goal oriented and achieving that outcome is very important to you, and you'll do that despite the uncomfort? Or do you feel like you just really like being accountable to yourself?
It's a great question. I think it's more of the first. I think a great exercise is to always evaluate with an open mind, what do you really want? And, one of the more disciplined people that I've observed would be like Charlie Sheen, right? Charlie Sheen wants to live a hedonistic lifestyle of like tiger blood or whatever. I don't know. This was like back in 2010
I remember that clip.
or whatever, right? But he was very authentic to what he wanted to do, right? And so I'm very, very rooted and very grounded in what I want to be and what I want to do. And that is not something that's natural or easy. It takes for me, it takes continual reminders to remember what it is I want to be, and then aligning my actions to what I want to do. And sometimes those are internal guardrails, sometimes they're external guardrails. But that willingness to say that I said I wanted to be this, but I only said that because I thought it sounded cool, and being willing to change that, I think that openness just gives you further strength when it comes to those moments of discipline, because you know that you're actually doing what you want. So it comes down to like the strong, like the stereotypical strong why. Now, I also believe that I have just a personality that's a little more discipline minded, and I'm open minded to that. But I do put in the work. I have put in the work. I have a rhythm I've done for the last 14 years of saying, who am I? What do I want to be? What's important to me? Or the actions that would require accountability to that, do I really want to do those actions? And when I start to feel that tension, I'm like, ooh, usually I should be like willing to do those things, even if they're uncomfortable, because I want this so bad. And if there's like a tension, then I really got to start questioning like, is this just something society wants that I think would sound cool? Or is it really something that's like, I feel called to be?
Yeah. I totally relate to that. Most recently, I did a half Ironman.
Nice.
And I had a goal in mind, and it was, I trained hard for 7 months, like 12 hours a week, right? It's a lot of training. So it's like 5 a.m. every single morning. And frequently it's, middle of the winter, 5 a.m, you wake up, it's pitch black. I'm going to go sit on my bike for 2 hours. Like, do I want to indoors?
It's a part-time job. Yeah.
Do I want to go do this? And it's like, who do I want to be? And is the goal stronger than my desire to quit?
Yeah. That's a good equation.
Yeah. And so it was for me, and now I finished my goal, and I haven't sat on my bike or was went in the pool since then, but accomplished it, move on.
Yeah.
What would you recommend for someone who say struggles with self-discipline? How can someone, jump back on the bandwagon of self-discipline?
Yeah. I think it starts with your why. So why, like, what is the thing you're struggling with discipline? What objective does that get you towards, in which life area? And is there a passion underlying that's helping to drive that as well? If you don't have those, like, for sure, I wouldn't be like, it's so easy not to be disciplined, right? So if you're not very strongly rooted in those, having a system of reminding yourself of your why when it comes down to those moments. And then there is a discipline between reactive discipline and structural discipline, right? And I would just say for myself, people view me as being pretty disciplined. There are things I'm pretty good with reactive discipline on. There are also things I'm not good at all. But I have the ability to set up structural discipline, right? So if I have
an example of reactive discipline,
reactive discipline would be walk into a donut shop, walk into the office. There's donuts everywhere every single day, and I react to that, knowing that I don't want to live a lifestyle where I'm eating donuts every morning for breakfast. It's there. I'm reacting to it. My discipline overcomes it consistently every single day, right? I've reacted to that scenario. A structural discipline would be, there are no sweets in my house, because if there are, they're getting eaten. And I can remind myself every night and read my objective statements on my phone and meditate on it and have somebody hold me accountable the next day. If there's candy in my house, I'm eating it. That's just the reality. So then you have to set up structural discipline and tell your wife, we don't have candy in our house because I will eat it. I love it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of different. That's like an easy food example. You can put that to every domain of your life and concoct different scenarios. But
yeah,
between
it's so funny, the similarities, man. Struggle with that every single day.
Yeah. Too much chocolate and ice cream.
Do you have kids?
I have 5 kids. Yeah.
You have 5 kids. Excellent.
5 kids, yeah.
How has your why changed since having kids?
My why has been consistent, I would say, in that aspect. Like my life areas of family have gotten more specific, but the why has not changed for me. And so um, I think this was an exercise I went through in my early 20s, which got me pretty grounded and pretty rooted. Uh, the goals have gotten more specific, but the passions, the purpose, and the objectives have not changed.
That's great. I mean, that
Maybe that's a
can
bad answer, but
helps
it's
with
real.
stability.
Yeah.
And always, continuing to go to the same, go towards the same goals.
Yeah. It's kind of like in that sense, like I was talking about the injury scenario. If I would have lived a life path where I would not have had kids, my purpose, passions, and objectives would not have changed, but they would have been achieved through different means. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, yeah, for me, it's a little bit different. When I had kids, I think the objectives changed because I, realized how cool it is to have kids and how I want to set them up for success. But I guess if I do really think about it, setting, myself up for success, not having kids and setting my kids up for success, it's still a similar outcome. It's just the objective still stays the same, but it's just the kind of short-term, I don't even know, short-term goals is what would be different, but I guess you're right. Kind of the objective is very similar. It just feels different as you're going through it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I think. That's my answer.
Wicked. Well, thank you so much, man. This has been a wonderful use of an hour.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope people got value out of it. I know I did, and I would love to have you on again in the future.
Let's go. Repeat. Do the whole series.
Let's do it. Man. Okay. Have a good one, man. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Painter Growth Podcast. If you want to grow your painting business, go to www.paintergrowth.com or click on the top link in the description. Talk soon.